That news, just one of the many big headlines of the week in politics across the country and here in Wisconsin. Time to dig into it on UpFront Thursdays. WISN political director and co-host of UpFront, Matt Smith, joining us once again. Matt, thanks for being with us today. Let's start out with the aftermath of the murder of Charlie Kirk. Of course, you've heard the news about the ABC stations putting an indefinite pause on Jimmy Kimmel Live after some remarks that he made came under fire after Kirk's death. So we saw a few Wisconsin congressmen make some remarks last night. What are you hearing about this?
So it's been fascinating to watch that the response to this has somewhat, at least on social media, fallen along party lines, right? Democrats versus Republicans, the Trump administration, the FCC versus ABC. And how this plays out, nobody really knows. I mean, there is some reporting that ABC would like to bring the show back at some point. Whether that happens or what happens behind the scenes is to be determined. And then on top of that, you have these station groups, none of which own either of us, WBAY or WISN, say, listen, we ourselves as station ownership groups are going to boycott you, ABC, and Jimmy Kimmel Live. So there's a lot of economics at play. There's a lot of politics at play. And how this all shakes out and the implications, I think, are still to be determined down the road.
Yeah, we'll be talking about this, I'm sure, in upcoming segments as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about last time we met, just a week ago, we were talking about the field for governor. And since then, we've had two more Democrats announce their plans for running in this race. So tell us who you talked to this week and what's the latest you know.
So the ever-growing field, and it's expected to grow even larger in the coming days. So just this week, as we've reported, two new Democratic candidates, State Senator Kelda Roys from Madison and State Representative Francesca Hong from Madison. So two Madison lawmakers now in the race. The question for both of them, and both of them are going to be on the show Sunday, is are they going to move this Democratic primary to the left? Francesca Hong, she is a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist. She's one of 4 members that are part of the Socialist Caucus in the Assembly. So we talk about how does that play outstate, outside of Madison, in northeast Wisconsin, in the western part of the state, as she begins to launch her campaign. And it's going to be fascinating to see how the other candidates, at least when you talk the primary, respond to this, and then who else may get in. We have the lieutenant governor, the Milwaukee County executive, among others who are already in the race.
So neither one of them have a large statewide presence. Both are from Madison, as you mentioned, representing Madison. So it is interesting that someone with not more statewide recognition hasn't jumped in at this point as well.
Yeah, so to that point, everyone is kind of waiting on Attorney General Josh Kaul to see what he will do. The lieutenant governor, I guess, arguably at this point may have the most statewide name recognition when you look at the field of candidates. But at that point, she has a lot of work to do as well. So there are some chips that may fall if Josh Kaul does get in the race or if he doesn't get in the race for governor. His campaign, he still has been really silent ever since the governor announced his decision. So there are still some pieces, at least on the Democratic side, waiting to see what's going to happen. We're now expected Congressman Tom Tiffany on the Republican side to enter the race next week. So that adds a third candidate to the Republican side. I think, Cami, as you and I talked last week, I think by the end of this month, as we get into October, we're going to kind of start to see these parties solidify just in terms of who's in and who's out. But who knows? Anything can happen in politics, I guess.
Right. And we are getting down to it. You do have to do some campaigning. You've got to get name recognition out there. So time is of the essence at this point. All right. Also on the show this week, you're looking at a couple of new election bills that Republicans will be introducing in Madison. Give us a preview of that.
Yeah, so this is going to be their big package of election legislation this fall, and it's going to do a number of things. You've talked about this in Green Bay. We've talked about this in Milwaukee, the Monday processing bill for central count locations for absentee ballots. It would allow, as we've talked about, the election officials to begin processing those ballots the day before Election Day. But now also tied to this legislation are going to be a number of new requirements and security measures for ballot drop boxes, for municipalities that use ballot drop boxes. Things like 24-hour surveillance that must be live streamed on a municipality's website. When you transfer those ballots, they're going to want a police escort. So they're working to build Republican support, especially in the state Senate. So they're going to roll out this package of bills targeting elections ahead of the midterms. They hope to get it passed this fall into the governor's desk. And we're going to kind of detail and walk through that all with one of the state representatives who's written these bills coming up Sunday on the show.
Do they have a good chance of passing? Do you think they will end up on the governor's desk?
So that's the million-dollar question. He's acknowledging from the start there is going to likely be some work to do on getting them passed as is. The state rep, though, did say that, yeah, I mean, we've worked with the governor's office. We've kept them informed because from their perspective, what they want to do, at least as what he's saying at this point, is get a series of bills that does have bipartisan support across the finish line to the governor's desk. I think there will likely be changes. I think there'll likely be some debate. But I think there is a chance, possibly, that this could get to the governor's desk and at least parts of these bills be signed.
All right. Thank you, Matt Smith, for joining us once again this week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Cami.
Of course, you can see Upfront this and every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. right here on WBAY TV2.